After 16 long years of complaining about how bad life is for women in the 21st century in the Western world, feminist propaganda website Jezebel has shut down. 16 years. If this website was a person, it would be old enough to drive. In fact, that's probably how it died. Texting while driving and texting about the patriarchy. So, you know what? Good riddance. Welcome back to Words of Paradise. I'm your host, Leon Idle, and let's have a look back at everything Jezebel has done for women in feminism in the 21st century as of late, as well as some of their most popular headlines, and of course what CNN has to say about the situation. But before we do, go ahead and hit that like button, hit the subscribe button to show that you are also ecstatic to see websites like this shuttering, and let's get on to the article, shall we? From CNN Business, Jezebel shuts down, lays off staff in excruciating decision, parent company says. Oh, you'll love to see it. I won't lie, I didn't think Jezebel was still around anymore. They had their, their peak moments of relevance in 2014 to about 2018, and I really haven't heard from them since. I mean, the Mary Sue has kind of taken over in terms of where I get my feminist propaganda, but apparently they were still kicking. I mean, not anymore, but Jezebel, the punchy feminist blog with an outsized influence on internet culture, will suspend operations and lay off its staff effective immediately. Its parent company, Geo Media, said Thursday as it announced broader restructuring in its portfolio of digital news outlets. Now, mind you, CNN is a very, liberal organization, so leave it to them to take, news outlets also quite liberally. Also, Geo Media, they're the ones that own Vice. If you guys are familiar with Vice, pretty much the same thing as Jezebel, but with less focus on women and more geopolitics as a whole. Also, again, with a very particular political slant. Jim Spanfeller, chief executive of Geo Media, said in a memo to staff obtained by CNN that the company had tried to sell the publication, but that after talks with 24 potential buyers, we could not find Jez a new home. 24 people. So that means they reached out to 24 different corporations, and all 24 of them were like, oh no, we're not touching Jezebel with a 16-foot pole. So, like, imagine that. That is how you know that our side is winning, that the culture is shifting, and that when I say our side, I don't mean the right wing or anything, because anyone that watches my channel knows that I'm not a right wing channel. I like to consider myself a rather down the middle type of individual that makes fun of both sides and can't agree with both sides depending on the issue and what's being brought up. But there is no agreeing with Jezebel. I don't know if they've ever, and I mean ever, posted something that anyone with sorts of common sense could actually, get along with. And maybe these media companies and larger conglomerations are starting to realize that when over 24 different companies said they would not buy this, that it was not worth it because of the type of media that they produce is trite. It is awful. So, you know what? It's just got to go to show, yeah, the culture is swinging back in a way that we can all appreciate, at least if you got some sort of common sense. As of this week, we're making the very, very difficult decision to suspend publication of Jezebel, Spanfeller said. Few decisions over the course of my career have been as excruciating, and I want to make clear that this is in no way a reflection of the Jezebel editorial team. Actually, it is a reflection of the Jezebel editorial team, because if you guys were worth your salt, then you would still have your doors open. People would be watching and reading your articles. They'd be getting ads off the website because people would be interested in what the Jezebel has to say. So the fact that the Jezebel editorial team couldn't get people invested in what they were writing and get people to actually agree with any of their stances absolutely is a reflection on them, regardless of what Spanfeller wants to say. I imagine he's considering it so excruciating to have to fire these people because, oh no, it's the patriarchy. He's a man, presumably a white man with the name of Jeff, or Jim, sorry, that, yeah, firing a bunch of most likely women, probably liberal white women. So yeah, it is excruciating because he knows he's fallen for this ideology hook, line, and sinker. He's probably going to go home and have trouble falling asleep at night because he, as a member of the patriarchy, had to fire all these hard-working women when he could have, I don't know, he could have just taken a pay cut and let them keep their jobs. Like, I don't know the extent of the details, but it probably actually is excruciating for him because he's going to go home with all this white man guilt, and it's hilarious to see individuals like this fall this far. Spanfeller said he has not given up on finding a buyer for Jezebel. Not giving up, man. Give up. You're closing your doors effective immediately. By the time this video actually comes out on YouTube, there's going to be no Jezebel. Who's going to want to buy it? Who's going to want to resurrect it? I imagine the 24 individuals that you already approached to buy it that said no were like the top tier upper echelon people. Is there anybody that's going to be willing to purchase this that could do anything with it that's even lower than that? Because we're already seeing, Kotaku, Polygon, those sorts of, journalists and outlets. Those are shuttering too. They're failing. Now, they've got maybe a little bit more longevity than the Jezebel, but that's not saying a whole lot. By the way, for those of you that don't know much about Jezebel, you've never really seen any of their sort of articles, well, let me just give you a few highlights. Amy Hart wants you to know that video games wouldn't exist without queer people. So all you guys out there that enjoy playing video games, you get down on Saturday night, you want to, drink some Mountain Dew and crank out some games of Smash Bros. Yeah, you gotta thank queer people for that. It's all the gays, all the gays' rights that have given you video games. So there's one article. What about kids deserve better than the brain-dead Super Mario Bros. Movie? The film that made $1.36 billion that family everywhere enjoyed. Adults, children, old individuals, the elderly, everyone loved Mario. You're going to be hard-pressed to find some idiots, aside from maybe Tim Pool, who was claiming it was woke, that they don't like the Super Mario Bros. Movie. But here we got the Jezebel. Kids deserve better than this brain-dead Super Mario Bros. Movie. Even Girl Boss Peach, who I do not think was a Mary Sue and think was actually awesome in the movie, but even Girl Boss Peach wasn't good enough for Jezebel. Well, what about this one? All the anti-abortion assholes who lost their elections. Like, look, I'm not here to tell you guys to be pro-choice, pro-life, whatnot. I'm gonna be real. It doesn't really matter to me one way or the other. It's not something that I have too much, of stock in the race of. But let's be real. Saying these anti-abortionist assholes in the title of your journalism, like, that's not exactly impartial. That's not good journalism. How can you take anyone seriously as a writer? How can you take an outlet seriously when they're using the same sort of language that a 17-year-old high schooler would use? It doesn't inspire a lot of confidence that you are correct about anything you're saying. Or what about this one? My personal favorite. All cartoon characters are gay until further notice. So yeah, just anytime you're popping on a cartoon, doesn't matter what it is, you must assume that they are of the homoerotic persuasion until further notice, because that is the sort of crap that the Jezebel put out. And you're wondering, wow, 24 buyers and nobody made an offer? How could that be? Well, you're looking at why. Spanfeller additionally announced Thursday that Geo would undergo broader restructuring that would result in layoffs. We've been operating over the last few quarters with an eye towards efficiency and being budget conscious. Well, let me tell you, there is no way to be efficient with individuals of the, feminist persuasion in the office. I mean, have you seen those cringe TikTok videos about what it was like a day in the life as a Twitter employee? And it was all these women doing yoga and drinking lattes and attending a meeting, but a meeting for who knows what, because no work was ever actually getting done in the Twitter offices before the Musk buyout. So yeah, no kidding you want to be budget conscious. That means, cutting the extra strands that are all these women that write for these journalistic outlets. I've been hoping that by doing so, we could see our way through these dark times in our industry, he told employees in his memo, and indeed, we held out far longer than most. Well, you didn't hold out longer than the Mary Sue or Polygon, and that's frankly shocking, but we can hold out no longer. In total, the suspension of Jezebel's operations and other restructuring actions will result in the departure of 23 editorial staffers, Spanfeller explained. That is 23 feminist Nazis that are no longer able to scream into the void of the online discourse about why men enjoying The Legend of Zelda or whatever is misogynistic, and you love to see it. The cuts come as a broader media industry continues to struggle with a weak advertising climate. Vice also announced cuts to its new team on Thursday, and across the media landscape, cost-cutting and layoffs have been rampant over the past year. Just about every company in our space has found themselves in similar circumstances. Do you mean the space of giving the most abhorrent left-wing liberal propaganda that even just the average centrist or, left-leaning individual with, more of a centrist ideology is like, hey, that's going a bit too far. You're talking about, abortion right up until the moment of birth? Look, I might be pro-choice, but that seems a little bit extreme. Like, those are the type of individuals that you would call right-wing. They're tired of seeing. You wonder why people consider, this ideology in Disney, why everything is woke. It's because you have pushed people to jump into those sorts of conclusions by putting out media like this. So yeah, no wonder everyone in your space has found themselves in similar circumstances. You thought that you had the golden ticket with all the wokeness and all the progressiveness of your outlets. That turns out the vast majority of individuals, even ones that are left-leaning, don't want that level of progress because they know, the common sense know, it's not actually progress. I don't know what to tell you guys. I mean, this is a massive win, and this is excellent news. Now, to be fair, it means that some individuals like myself, we're going to lose one of our outlets for content. I mean, I'm not going to, because like I said, I didn't even realize they were still a thing. There's some other places that we can go to get this sort of nonsense if we want to read it. But yeah, again, Mary Sue, Kotaku, all those sorts of outlets, they're going to be following suit eventually. I don't think it'll come soon enough. I can't wait, honestly, for the day that this comes to fruition for all those sorts of businesses. And frankly, individuals like Bounding Into Comics as well. Just because Bounding Into Comics is, sometimes more often than those other ones agrees with me, doesn't mean that they're not still a stain on what I would consider real journalism. Bounding Into Comics is the exact same, but for the right wing. All the feminist Nazi propaganda that you see out of Jezebel, you get the same with the right wing chuds on Bounding Into Comics. Now, don't get me wrong, they got some more wins. Like, they got far more W's than someone like Jezebel or Kotaku. But at the end of the day, it doesn't mean that they're reporting or that anything is less biased. No, it's the exact same thing, but with some Bible quotes at the end. And I, for one, want to return to a time when our journalism can actually be looked at and thought, you know what? Thanks for making me question the system. I believe what you put out there. It's not just ultra propaganda to get your political side of view out there to the masses in a way that will frankly tarnish and destroy our American ecosystem, and in the case of what I'm trying to create and help be a part of, our nerdy subculture ecosystem. Although, can you really call it a subculture when Hot Topic sells every t-shirt imaginable for 30 bucks? Point is, this is great news, and hopefully more follow suits. But those are just my opinions. Let me know yours in the comments down below, or let me know on X, where you can find me at BoltTheWord. And please do subscribe. I am a nerdy news channel. I cover nerdy news every day, and I mean, I don't know if you would consider this nerdy or not, but let me tell you, I think that when you have articles like women, queer individuals are the reason for video games, that starts to count as nerdy. So by all means, check me out on Instagram at wordsofparadise_Leon, and do hit that subscribe button because it's all here in the nerdosphere. And this has been Words of Paradise.